Welcome, everybody, to another Premier Collectibles live signing with Scottie Pippen, who is joining us to talk about his new memoir, Unguarded. My name is Adam Fluke, and I'm a member of Scottie's team. Scottie, thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure to be here, and thanks to Premier Collectibles for giving me this opportunity again.
So, Scottie, let's get right into it. Everybody knows about the success that you've had on the court, but in this last year, you've really become a force in the business world. The accolades that everybody knows about: six-time champion, 50 greatest in NBA history, a Hall of Famer, but now you are a New York Times best-selling author. What did it mean to you to add that accolade to your list?
Wow, it was one of the most amazing things. When I set out to do the book, I didn't know what the journey was going to be like. But as I went through it, I do realize that it was very time consuming, a lot of help from family, friends, teammates, and things of that nature. And I can only say that it's been worth it, the whole ride. It's been very enjoyable. I've had the opportunity to reach out to old friends and just have that line of communication again. But it's truly an accolade that I didn't anticipate, but I'm very honored to be a part of, some of the greatest to ever be a part of the New York Times bestseller. It's truly a great accomplishment for me.
So much like the New York Times, you very much had an international audience throughout your career. And part of today's event, a big part of today's event, is that we get questions from people, and they're coming in from all over the world. So I want to ask you a little bit about some of your experiences overseas. And one of them that you talk about quite a bit in the book is on the Dream Team. Talk about, that experience back in '92. Playing with guys who were stars in the '80s, but also the '90s, and on a team that to this day is regarded as one of the greatest teams, if not the greatest, in team sports.
Well, it was such an honor, first and foremost, to be a part of that dream team. When they first announced that it was going to be some professionals playing for the gold medal, I never thought that I would be a part of that first team, but I can truthfully say that, due to the success that we had in the early '90s with the Chicago Bulls, it truly helped to propel my opportunity. But it was an amazing thing for me. A lot of the players that was a part of that team were guys that I watch and sort of idolize to some degree. They were already playing in the league, and just having that opportunity to be around those guys, to get to know them more on a personal base was it was great. It was something that had never happened for NBA players to have that relationship, have that opportunity to sort of be a teammate, I guess. And it was truly special, to learn what these guys did away from the game, as well as how their work ethics were on the basketball court. And just having the opportunity to travel the world with them. It was amazing to have that chance to bond with some great guys, Karl Malone, Patrick Ewing, guys like that, they were always the enemy next door. So to have that opportunity to see them as a teammate and, to be a mature man enough to want to embrace them as friends, it was something that, I truly embraced and loved every minute about being a part of that dream team.
So that dream team, again, goes back to 1992. How have you seen basketball become more of a global game since then? And you've been to everywhere from China and different places in Europe. You've been somewhat of an ambassador for the game since those dream team years. But what, from your perspective, how have you seen the game become a global game?
Well, Adam, to tell you the truth, I did a lot of sort of grassroots work for Nike back in the late '80s, all the way through the early '90s, all the way up until the dream team, and even after that. So I've seen the game come full circle in a lot of ways, different uh, type of cultures all over the world. Different countries have embraced the game of basketball in such a way that, not only have they embraced the NBA to be able to come in, but it's also given younger players the opportunity to see the game from a huge magnifying glass and give them hope and opportunity to dream and to inspire to one day, be a part of such a great game. So it's been amazing to watch a lot of the young players and to hear their stories about how they really got involved in the basketball and their first time, seeing the game of basketball. And I'm just proud to, be a part of such a generation that grew the game in such a huge magnitude.
Last question on the global aspects. What do you think it takes for American athletes to have that international appeal? What is it that those audiences overseas are looking for?
Well, I think the first and foremost, they want to see a champion. They want to see winners. That's where especially in places like China, they believe in winners and people and how they win and embracing the love and the right character of what it takes to be a winner. But I think in today's game, social media has truly helped these players to really globalize themselves. But ultimately, it's about winning. It's about being, one of those top four teams playing, for the Eastern Conference Finals or the Western Conference Finals. But ultimately, the goal is about winning and playing for an NBA championship.
All right, well, let's wrap up this portion of it. We are here talking about Unguarded, which is your best-selling memoir. Signed copies are available now at premiercollectibles.com, Unguarded. And if you're up for it, Scottie, let's get to some of these fan questions.
Sure, I'm up for it.
All right, and sticking with that international theme, we have Kong from Sydney, Australia. He is a big-time fan. He wants to know, first and foremost, if you've been to Australia or if you're going to come down at any point soon. And of course, what did you think of playing with the Australian Luke Longley on that second three-peat teams?
Well, first, I have not been to Australia. I know it's a beautiful country. I wanted to go and visit someday, but due to the pandemic, I have not made it over yet. But Luke is a great friend of mine. We still stay in touch. I definitely have a lot of respect for him. He was a player that came in and didn't have a lot of confidence at that stage of his career. But I think coming to Chicago was something that really rejuvenated him. It rejuvenated his value as a player. But I love Luke. He's invited me to Australia numerous of times, and I look forward to visiting one day.
Okay. Next up, we have Nathan in Toronto. He knows you stay in touch with the game. Is there a player or players that kind of remind you of yourself when you see them on the floor?
I would probably say Siakam from the Toronto Raptors remind me a lot of myself, especially the young Scottie Pippen. But he's been able to really spread his wings, I think, a little bit more since the departure of Kawhi. I feel like that with him and Kyle Lowry leaving, that's really turned out to be his team there. He's shown a lot of great leadership over the last 3 seasons, and I have a lot of respect for him and the way that he played the game. But, there's numerous amount of players that I see a lot of flashes of myself, even LeBron. He's a guy that's always been the alpha player on his team, which I feel like that I never was. But he's a player that we have a lot of similarities on the basketball court.
Next up, we have Crisanto from Ontario, Canada. He wants to know if you've ever thought about what your career may have looked like had you not been traded to the Bulls on the night of the draft. And for those that don't know, Seattle did pick you at 5, and then you sent to Chicago on a draft night trade. Have you ever considered what may have happened if you stayed in Seattle or just ended up with another team?
No, I never really considered because I really never got a look at what that Seattle team looked like. I could probably run off a handful of names from, Xavier McDaniels to Nate McMillan. Uh, I may even think Paul Pierce may have been there, or maybe he was still not Paul Pierce, Ricky Pierce, but he may have been still in Milwaukee. But I really don't know what it would look like. I was only there for probably 10, 15 minutes during draft night. So I really didn't get too excited because I knew I was going to be traded to Chicago as well.
We have Cedric from France, who said he's been a fan of yours since the beginning. And like a lot of people, he's always going to remember your dunk in the 94 playoffs over Patrick Ewing. He wants to know what you remember about that play. And that game, I believe, was the last game in Chicago Stadium. Is that right, Scottie?
I think you may be right. That was the last game in Chicago Stadium, especially the NBA game. I did have a charity game after that to shut it down. But, back in the day when we played against the Knicks, those was always great games, exciting games, definitely headliners. And, it was just one of those games where we were battling, trying to defend our title. And we were coming off a season without Michael being a part of our team. So we had a lot of role players and journeymen who had joined our team, but we had a very exciting team. And I remember that play like yesterday. Pete Myers, pushing the ball down the middle. And I know Pete is more of a pass first guy. So I just got out and ran the lanes hard. And I guess I beat Patrick to the punch.
We've got Aaron from Chatham, Illinois. 2-part question. What made you want to write the book? And what do you think about this year's Bulls team?
First question, I wanted to write the book really because it's something that I always wanted to do. I think it's almost like a kid dreaming of playing in the NBA. And then once you've sort of had that journey, you feel like that there's a story to be told. And especially with the type of career that I had, being a part of some great teams, being a part of a couple of international teams, that I felt like that I had a story to tell, especially looking back at my childhood. And I felt that that was something that I always wanted to do. And what was the second part of that question?
Your thoughts on this year's Bulls team, which is off to a good start.
Well, they are off to a great start. I think that the chemistry with Levine is really starting to, be fruitful for them. I think that the guys that they were able to acquire this summer with DeRozan, that chemistry with him and Levine has definitely meshed pretty fast. And I think that this is a team that they can be scary in the playoff. But, I still think that there are teams out there that, they still have to do more work to overcome. I think Milwaukee is still the top team in the East, but I think Brooklyn is not far behind. And I think that they're going to make some moves that it's going to improve their lineup. But I think they've definitely raised the bar in terms of their competitive level, and that they're a team that's, they're getting some W's now. So it's great to see.
Yeah, another question about the modern day NBA from Tim in West Rock Island, Illinois. He wants to know who you've got as your front runner in the MVP race so far.
I'm going to pick one name. It'd probably be Steph Curry. I think he's having an amazing season. I think that Golden State Warriors are back to the type of basketball that we saw them play 4 or 5 years ago. They're a team that shoots the basketball very well. They play very unselfish basketball, hard-nosed defense. And, I think with the anchor of Draymond Green in there, now that, expectation with Clay coming back, that in a few weeks that, they're going to be a tough team to handle. I mean, especially the way that the rules of the game are today is that, if you can shoot the basketball, it's a huge plus, and that's what Golden State has. They have some great shooters, but also they're a team they they're good. They're as good on the defensive end as they are on the offense end, and I think we tend to give them so much credit because of how they shoot the basketball, but they defend well, and that's how they win basketball games.
So you mentioned how the rules of the game have changed over the years, and that ties into our next question from Chris in San Francisco. He wants to know, because of the things that you did on the floor and your versatility, how do you think you would do in today's NBA game? He also thinks that a guy like Tony Kukoc would thrive, and wants to know if there's any other players from your era who you think would do really well given the current rules of the game.
Well, I think based on the current rules of the game, a lot of players and would really strive in this era. This is a shooting era. This is a different way of preparing your team compared to where we prepared ourselves in the late 80s and the 90s. This is all about going in the gym, shooting the basketball, being ready to shoot, but also taking open shots. Teams don't want players turning down open shot opportunities. And I would think that, I would do well in today's game. Guys like Steve Kerr, Ray Allen, I mean, these guys played in an era where the defender had a bit of an advantage. And I would say for me to play in this era, I wouldn't be the same type of defender, because I think that that's all more of an advantage for the offense. And I think that I would definitely embrace the opportunity of shooting the basketball like a lot of these players are.
We'll change gears here a little bit with a question from Joshua in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He wants to know, what type of meals did you like to eat before and after games?
Well, there were days when I had those games at noon that I would love to probably eat like steak and egg and just try to go right into the arena from that meal, probably just eating one meal that morning. And then you have your afternoon games where you're traveling or whatever, that I would either try to eat pasta or always a steak. So I always try to feel like the steak would give me just a little more lead way before game time, because I think people fail to realize that in preparation for the game, you start around 3, 4 o'clock, and the game normally don't start to around 7. So you're really a bit hungry by the time the game starts if you don't prepare yourself with the right meal.
Next up, we have Anthony from Maplewood, New Jersey. He says he knows that you played in front of some incredible crowds in Chicago, but of all the other cities, what were some of the best crowds to play in front of?
I was kind of blessed to be part of some great teams, and a lot of the cities that we played in, we had more support coming out to support us than most of the home fans. But I enjoyed all the cities. New Jersey was a great city. Playing in the Meadowlands was always an amazing place to play. Great fans there. And also, playing in New York, Boston, LA, those are the obvious. But, Miami has created a great fan base for themselves. Sacramento Kings, Utah, I think the way that, our teams are set up in the cities that they're in, they're all great cities, and I've enjoyed and embraced my career in every one of them.
We talked a little bit about your pregame meals. Jason in Frankfurt, Germany wants to know if there was any particular music that you listened to back in the day to kind of get you in the right mindset before a game.
I didn't have any particular music. I would listen to Tupac, Biggie, but I would also listen to Frankie Beverly, Anita Baker. So it was just really music was different back then. You didn't have as many artists as you do today, especially in the rap world. So it was a little bit easy to kind of pick and choose, what style of music you wanted. So I kind of dizzled and dazzled in it all.
Okay, we've got Tim in Woodstock, Georgia. He's got a question about Scottie Jr., who is a ball player down at Vanderbilt, having a good season. He wants to know what you see in him that kind of reminds you of yourself on the court.
Well, what I see in my son, it reminds him of me is probably his unselfishness, the way that he plays the game. And I would say his mindset as to how he sees the game. I think that he is a player that has a great knowledge, a great feel for the game. And I think those are things that are more naturally. I don't think you can learn that on the fly. I think it's a natural instinct for someone who has a good understanding of the game of basketball, that you understand it from a team concept, but you also understand what makes the game fun and what makes things work in the game of basketball. And I think he has that knack.
The book obviously talks a lot about the championship runs during the 90s, and Nicholas in Hampton Bays, New York, wants to know if there was a particular team or series that gave you the hardest path to win that championship.
Well, I would probably say, looking back at the 91 team, I think when we won our first title, we were defeated on our home court in game one by the, famous Showtime Los Angeles Lakers. We went on to win the next 4 games, but I think that was probably a situation that kind of put us more on our heels than anything, because even though we won game 2, there were no promises that we were going to go on the road and win a game. The Lakers were a well-greased machine. They had won numerous of championships, under the direction of Magic Johnson. And, we didn't have that much confidence and going on the road thinking that we were going to come back with 3 wins, even though that was the turnout.
Next up, we've got Eric in Collinston, Louisiana. He's wondering if there is a story behind you picking number 33 for your jersey, and also how often you get back to Southern Arkansas.
Well, the story behind me picking 33 is I grew up sort of idolizing Larry Bird, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and those were players that, I felt like that if I could take something away from those guys' game, that it was definitely going to give me an opportunity to be the player that I wanted to be. And I started wearing 33 in college, and it was something that I believed in. I believed in myself, and I felt that, from day one, that I had to sort of earn my own stripe to be worthy of wearing that number. What was the second part of that question?
They want to know how often you get back home to Southern Arkansas.
Southern Arkansas. I get back to Arkansas pretty often. I still got my family, a lot of friends still live there. I got a little small ranch where I grew up at in Hamburg. So I get back there at least 10 to 15 times a year.
Okay. We got time for a couple more here. We've got Richard in Marietta, Georgia, says that life in the game of basketball is full of ups and downs. When you find yourself in a slump, because that happens to everybody from time to time, what was it that you did to try to work your way out of it?
I would say stay in the gym. I think that life is about ups and downs, as you say, but especially in basketball, we are performers, no matter if it's on a high school level, college, professionals, we are performers. And sometimes our performance are not as great as we would like for it to be. And sometimes it is awesome, like we can't get off beat. But when we do get off beat, it just means more practice and to dedicate yourself more to your craft to try and shake the cobwebs out.
Yeah. So on that note, Michael in Byron Center, Michigan wants to know what advice that you give to young aspiring athletes who are developing their game, whether they're in junior high or high school or even college, but always looking to get to that next level.
I would say work hard and dream. I think it's important to dream and to believe in your dream. I think that's how we accomplish the unexpectable, is that we continue to grind and continue to believe. But I think dreaming is important, but I think you got to work hard at anything that you want in life. And lastly, don't give up. There's going to be some dark days and some moments where you're doubting yourself, but that's not the time to give up. It's time to dig a little deeper.
We'll close on one question about the book. When you look back, the book's been out for about a month now, and this was a process that you spent really a couple of years on. Was there any particular story that you were most excited to share with the world?
I think it was me more or less talking about my childhood growing up. I think that was important for people to sort of know who I am, especially kids in today's world. I mean, they only see the championships and the glory days, but I think it's important to let them know about the struggles and what it was like, as a little kid who, I was dreaming of playing in the NBA one day as well. It just didn't fall out of the sky for me, but it was something that I had to work at. And I think it's a story that for those who, inspired to be great at whatever, doctor, lawyer, coach, that you got to put in the work. And that's really what pays off.
That's a good note to wrap on, Scottie. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And for those who are still looking to get their signed copy of Unguarded, go to premiercollectibles.com/unguarded. Scottie, any final words?
No, Adam, I just want to thank you for hosting again, and thank Premier Collectibles. They've been great, and thank all my fans out there who joined us today, but also for the support that they've shown through the book. Without them, none of this, the bestseller, anything would be possible. So thanks to those people who supported us.
Thank you, Scottie. And once again, it's premiercollectibles.com Unguarded. Everybody have a great weekend.
Hey, this is John Acuff, New York Times best-selling author of 7 books and someone who's done a live signing. If you like the one you just watched, make sure you check out our YouTube channel. It's full of amazing authors having great conversations and signing books for viewers just like you. So make sure you subscribe, and thanks for watching today.